Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
We begin this morning's service in loving memory of Karol Strenger, Karol ben Yaakov, a tzaddik who lived amongst us, with Psalm 121. I call upon my son, Rabbi Lazer, to sing Psalm 21.
Esa enai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri me'yimado yenoi, oise shamayim evoretz, al yitein amoid raglecho, al yanu mashoim refo, hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomerecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yiminecha, yomam hashemesh, lo yakeka v'yareach balayla, Adonai yishmorecha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha, Adonai yishmor tzidcha u'boecha, me'ata v'ad olam.
Psalm 130, Shir HaMalach, V'mamakim Krasich Adonai, Adonai Shema V'kel Ti'enos Nefesh Kashivas L'Kel Tachanonai, Im Avonis Tishmaya Pnei Miyamod Kim Chaslecha, L'man Tevarei, Ki Visa Adonai Kivsa Nafshi, U'dvarei V'chalti, Nafshi L'Adonai M'Shem L'Obeker, Shem L'Obeker, Yachal Yisrael Adonai, כי אם אני נהיה חסד בהבר עם מפדוס, והוא יפתס ישראל מכל אבני סוף. Psalm 16. Michtam לדוד שמרני אל ככסיסי בך. אמרתי לאדינוי אותה, תבוסי בללך, לקדושים אשר בארץ המה ועדיני כל חפצי בם. יהיה צוויס המחים מורי בלסך נסגי מדם, ובלס השמויס המל ספוסי. אדיני מנס חלקי וחייסי עתתם וקרלי. חבל נפלי בן אימא מפנפו שפר עלי. אברך אסתנוי אשר ירצני, אף לילסי סנון חליוסי. כי ביסי אדיני לנגי סמך כמימיני בעלמית. לא כן סמך ליבי ויגל כבודי, אף בסרי ישגל לבטח. כי לא יסעזב נפשי לשאול לסיתן חסך לרשחס. תדיעני ערך חיים, סבא סמכת אספנדך, נעימוס במנחה נצח. I generally at funerals don't share any words with something here from the family, the hesped, the eulogy in honor of Karol. However, I just want to make one short point. Anyone who's ever met Karol knows that he was on a category on his own. It was, in my mind, an angel of God sent to us to save lives, to give lives, to protect lives, to show us what a malach, what a true, refined human being can be. It was a number of years ago on the Sukkot holiday that we went to bring him to Lulav and Esrog to make a blessing. And he tells us, I refuse to make the blessing on the Lulav, which was absolutely shocking for us, that he should refuse to make the blessing. And when we asked him why he refused, he tells us, come back tomorrow, because I have already eaten today, and I remember that you don't make the blessing. The first thing you do on Sukkot holiday is you make the blessing on the lulav before you eat, and I refuse to do it today because I've already eaten, come back tomorrow, which we did. Which is so coincidental that just the other day, my children went to visit him with the lulav and Esrog, and the last words that they heard from him is words that will ring in their ears forever. Chag Sameach, always a holiday. I believe that it is of no coincidence that he passed away on the holiday of Hoshana Rabbah. For the Talmud tells us as follows, that God judges most people on Rosh Hashanah, and then he seals the book on Yom Kippur. But then for the final few who he struggles, that God struggles with what should happen with them, he waits all the way until the day of Hoshana Rabbah, the day preceding the holiday of Shmini Atzeres and Sukkot Torah. I really could just imagine the struggle in heaven, that the angels say, we want him back, he's one of ours, and God said, I need him here. I need him to live long. I need him to be a model, that there's so far and few in between left. And Rosh Hashanah came, and Yom Kippur came, and finally at the end, the last day, that God can make the judgment of this year, God won, and he said, we need Kalman, this Malach, this angel of life, who came face to face with the angel of death and said, I'm going to stand up and protect life, when everyone was giving up hope. So, Tanya, you're lucky to have him. We were lucky to have him. Everyone who met him was inspired by him. And I'm just going to share the words that my son Laser wrote. We were sitting as a family when he called and let me know that his neshama was taken. And my children were all moved. And Laser wrote as follows, and he posted it on Facebook. What a special man. Every single encounter with Reb Kalman was a valuable lesson, a learning experience, a moving moment. I can't thank him enough for the 27 years that he gifted me with being a role model in my life. He changed my world. In his humility, he would deny this, but he literally impacted and gave life and opportunity to thousands and thousands of people. He lived for others. The loss of Kalman is the loss of more people than we will ever know. Tanya, may the memory of your tzaddik father be a blessing. Amen. Amen. To eulogize Reb Kalman will be the Bucky and Tanya, followed by the children. So, come on.
Tanya lost her father. I lost my teacher. The Jewish people lost one of their real true heroes. There's so many people alive today. They don't know it, but because he saved their parents or their grandparents' lives. And when I spoke to him, he said to me, you know, I'm so proud of you. You went to college. I said, Talmud, you're a master carpenter, plumber, mason, electrician, auto body repairman. If I only knew what you forgot. He said, God in heavens, wish I knew what I don't know. That was Talmud. He was a sweet soul, but he was a protector of the Jewish people fiercely. We lost the giant.
Before I begin, I want to thank Juliet and Mercy, my father's wonderful caregivers. Juliet, it was because of you that my father was able to live out his life. To the Weisbart family and Mendel and Mattel, you were the family I never had. I know that for many years your home was the only place that my father could feel comfortable and talk about experiences that only other survivors could understand. My father was the most humble of men and the most gentle. And I was blessed to have him raise me. He was born in the town of Istrik, in the Carpathian Mountains, one of 6 children. He loved to tell me stories about home. In fact, just a month ago, Rachel told me to ask him about his family, and he told me how they all worked together in the gas station they had. And he told me about his youngest brother, Moshe Yoshua, that Joshua was named after, and how he was the funniest of all the children, and then he laughed remembering him. And of course his sister Hannah, whom he adored, and what a hard worker she was. And then he spoke about his sister Miriam for the first time to me, and told me that she had a heart condition. He should have lived a quiet life in Istrik. When the war came, he worked as a scout for the Russians who occupied the town after the Nazis left. Yimash Shemam Zichronam, their name, their memory be erased forever. They left in 1939. He fought in Stalingrad after he went east with a Russian and received a shrapnel wound to the head that saved his life because he was transferred to an underground hospital east of the war zone. He was a partisan, a member of Richa, a group that took Jews from the DP camps to Italy and then onto boats headed for Israel. He was imprisoned by the British, Yimash Shemam V'Zichronam, on Cyprus, and finally got to Israel. After corresponding with my mother, who was from the next small farming village, they were married and came to America. My father could fix anything. No education, no degrees, just a pair of golden hands. My father had many stories, but I will only tell you one. When he was young, my grandmother would always take in Luftmenschen, people who wandered from town to town, begging for a meal and a place to sleep. People of the air. It was my father's job to get them straw to sleep on, and he hated that job. And my grandmother used to say to him, someday you'll be happy if someone gives you a place to sleep. And there were many nights he did not know where he would sleep or what he would eat. He lost everything, his entire family, his entire world. Where my family had lived for centuries, Judenline, in the way he carried them with him always. He once said, I remember every person and every house. Now, Daddy, I pray you will be reunited with them, your mother and father, your brothers, Mendel and his wife, and Levi, and Moshe Yoshua, and your sister Hannah, and her husband, Meshulam Zeidel, and my cousin, and Miriam. And even though I never had this close to know them, their memories and souls are seared into the eyes of your great-grandchildren and your grandchildren. Every time I look at them, go, Daddy, rest in peace. Go back to the woods you knew so well. We will miss you, but you did so much, and your suffering is finally over. And this is the song that my father taught me. Mijn beste geluisterd in de show, es wird der Beuten in der Zott mit seinen Du. Von grüne Palmen an, vom Land von weißem Schnee. Sie kommen in, was in der Peivel unser Weh. En Ort für Salmen wird er singen den Kajot. Wie Apollo, so ging das Lied von dort zu dort. No.
Rachel.
So, my mother was brave. She sang. I'm going to embarrass myself by singing also. If you know this song, this will always be the song for my grandparents, including and especially Papa Strenger. Life in Pripyat. Please sing along. Life in Pripyat brannte Feuer, und Stub ist heiß, und die Rebbe lernt, kleine Kinder lacht, der Malef Beis. Und die Rebbe lernt, kleine Kinder lacht, der Malef Beis. Gedenkt Kinder lacht, gedenkt Teiere, was ihr lernt da. Sucht ihr noch einmal und Tage noch einmal, kommet alle an. Sucht ihr noch einmal und Tage noch einmal, kommet alle an. Dylan is going to read the translation.
Fire burns on the hearth, and it is warm in the little house, and the rabbi is teaching little children the alphabet. Remember, children, remember, dear ones, what you learn here. Repeat and repeat again. Kometz Aleph O. Learn, children, don't be afraid. Every beginning is hard. Lucky is the Jew who studies Torah. What more do we need? When children, you will grow older, you will understand how many tears lie in these letters, and how much crying.
I will not be short, I will torture you. Papa Strenger's first name may have been Karol, but all of my friends knew him simply as Papa. He was Papa to so many people, but only 3 of us were lucky enough to count him as our grandfather. I could recite to you his many virtues, but you already know them. War hero, saint, Lamed Vavnik. You are all familiar with biblical and folk tales in which the angel appears as a beggar. You know it is often those who seek attention and praise, who try to gain your trust and win you over, who are the last people in the world you should believe. If you want to know the truth, look out for the humble, quiet man in rags in the corner of the room. Look out for the papas of the world. Many of you know him as a gentle old man, but the joys of Papa was that although he was the kindest and the sweetest, he was also a lot of fun. He used to ride us in the basket of his bicycle and take us on safaris to drainage ditches at the edge of the golf course. He loved to take us for walks in the pine barrens and swimming in our underwear in the pond by his house. He gripped us by the wrists and swung us around on the lawn at the apartments, and we flew. He gave us Indian sunburns and squeezed our hands until the bones crushed together. He arm wrestled us and did not let us win, and we loved every second. Papa taught us not to be afraid. We explored New York in the 80s without a second thought to bad neighborhoods. Nor did he ever let modernity stand in his way. He never owned an answering machine or a color television. Not that he was a Luddite. He just knew that riding your bike was healthier than driving the car. Nothing was wasted with Papa. Without intending it, he was an environmentalist, a natural health practitioner, a whole foods eater, and an exercise devotee. He practiced meditation, mindfulness, being in the moment, except he didn't call it that. He called it sitting quietly in a chair and breathing. Growing up, we thought his accent was funny and his little expressions were cute. Make the homework, Joshie. You won from the best, Vivi. Rachel, don't let no one spit in her cereal. Let me kiss you, Kepi. Have a good one, folks. And the old-fashioned things he did, putting newspaper in his shoes in the winter, sticking a cotton ball with garlic oil in his ear for an earache. We thought his clothes were funny, his tendency to hide his wallet in the floorboards, his habit of eating raw garlic. But there were the funny, sad things, too. Even as a preschooler, I can remember him saying, "When are you going to take out the old bag of trash? Kick the old bag to the curb." When I was pregnant with Dylan, I took Papa for a weekend visit to see Josh in Boston, and he asked me what to pack. I thought he wanted to know, like, would he need a suit to go to shul on Shabbos? But no, it turned out he wanted to know if he needed things like a second pair of underwear and socks. I laughed about it at the time. Papa, who grew up taking a bath only once a week at a bathhouse. And in truth, I still find the humor in it. He was so disconnected from our world, but in the nicest of ways. He was a constant reminder that we don't need all this crap, the cell phones and the clothes and the watches and the cars. It is easy to talk about the old and funny accented as cute, but there was pain beneath his austerity. He wasn't an idealist, and he wasn't just stuck in the past. He was also never able to take more, to ask anything for himself, because he never felt that he deserved it. Papa was a good man, but he was not an angel. He was the strongest person I knew, both physically and mentally, but he was frail emotionally. He suffered from survivor's guilt so strong it shaped his entire life, it shaped his daughter's life, it shaped my life. Probably it shapes my children's lives. Although he was proud to have become an American citizen, he never really left Poland. Uschikidona was always back home. And I love to hear him tell stories of his life there. How he used to suck on the end of the gasoline tube to get the gas flowing. How it was his job to spread the straw on the floor for the Luftmenschen. How he and his brothers were involved with the Zionist youth movement. How he loved to dance the tango. Did you know that? He loved to dance the tango. Or about how his father died out of town on a Shabbaton when Papa was just 5 years old. And he wasn't taken to the funeral, so he would go down to the train station and beg people to buy him a ticket so he could visit his father's grave. Papa's world is now gone, and he, our link to that world, is gone. He was a witness to so much, to that old world and to the birth of modernity, to the horrors of the Holocaust. I don't like that phrase. It's such an easy clause to put at the end of a sentence, as if what Papa saw and what he knew and what he went through were just a footnote in the history textbooks. For so many of us, and especially in his later years, Papa was both a person and a totem. The Holocaust survivor, the partisan, the hero. It is easy to glorify him and hold him up. He truly was such a good man. He had warmth and wisdom, and he never judged, and he never complained. Right, Juliet? Never complained. But in the way that a slightly crooked nose lends character to an otherwise perfectly symmetrical face, it was his brokenness that made him beautiful. The psychologist Esther Perel talks about two kinds of Holocaust survivors, those who didn't die and those who came back to life. Certainly, Papa was the former. He took a vow never to dance again after the war. He was in mourning for the rest of his life, and yet he had a life. He made a family. He ran a business. He had friends and a community. He was there to celebrate when the state of Israel was born. He raised a daughter and grandchildren and has 9 beautiful great-grandchildren, and he got to hold every one. So take that, Hitler. He was our grandfather, but he was everyone's Papa. And he will be missed. I loved him so much. It is time to say goodbye. And so, as Papa would say, have a good one, folks.
thanks everybody for coming. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare things because there was the fog and then we drove down late last night, so you'll have to forgive me if I ramble a little bit, you know. The first thing I thought was that it was so fitting that Papa died also on Sukkot, you know, that every holiday has a Zman, right? Shavuos is Zman Toratenu, and Pesach is Zman Cheresenu, and Sukkot is Zman Simchasenu. It's the time when you're supposed to celebrate. That's exactly like Papa, right? To die, and you have to. He said, "Forget about me. Just come on, celebrate." It's exactly, you know, how humble and how selfless he was, that he always wanted, you know, only for other people. I was lucky enough to grow up with both my grandfathers around, and I was close to both of them. My father's father, Joey, he had an accent like the tough guy James Cagney. He came from the greatest city in the world, and he'd come down every weekend and buy me ice cream, and we'd talk about baseball cards, and he'd give me them. You know, and my mother's father, you know, he lived in this creepy house out in the woods, and, you know, he just would give me stale candy corn, and he sounded like Count Dracula to a 4-year-old, and, you know, he wore a lot of polyester and the same green hat every day. And it was, for a little kid, it was, you know, I preferred my father's father, but, you know, he was so incredible. He, as Rachel said, he used to take us out on the basket of his bike, and he'd ride us around the neighborhood, and he'd tell us he was taking us to South America to have a picnic in a sewer drain. It was my favorite thing to do. And he'd give us Indian burns and hurt us, and he never was easy on us. You know, I remember he'd come over to the house, and my mother would talk about how he didn't have enough to eat during the war, and I'd say, "Look, I'm not wasting food, Papa." And he'd say, "Big deal." And he was always pushing me to do more, not in an unkind way, but he was, you know, he wanted more from us, and he knew how to get it. He was, he was amazing. You know, as you know, he was the most humble of people. He was, you know, he'd tell me, you know, he was a dummy and he didn't go to school, and, you know, but I'd sit there, and he was the most intelligent person. He'd tell me about all the trades. He'd tell me, we talk about Talmud, we talk about, you know, crop rotations in Eastern Europe, and, you know, the war, and, you know, European Jewish history. He was a man without pretense. You know, I remember he used to do his bag clips to hold his pants together on the bicycle so they wouldn't get caught in the gears. You know, he was the kind of person, he didn't speak unless he had something to say, and he was a person who, you know, there's a lot of people who talk, but he did what needed to be done. And, you know, usually for a lot of his life, it wasn't because he wanted to be a hero or something. He didn't have a choice, but he did it. And he didn't complain. He never complained. And when his life was ripped away from him, you know, he fought. And when he had the opportunity to have a life and a family and a new beginning, he didn't complain about the old world. I never heard him mourning for it, telling me, you know, things would be better. He looked forward to life, and he used every opportunity to live. And he would tell me, you know, the Torah says, choose life. And I think the biggest thing he taught me was that, you know, I always thought, you know, if I had a problem, you know, talking to him, you realize, you know, your problems here aren't real. You've got a roof over your head, you've got your health. You don't have people that are trying to hunt you down for who you are. You know, he taught me so much that way, and it was nothing he needed to say. He did it. I don't know what else to tell you. He was the inspiration for me for all the things I do Jewishly, for the fact that people wanted to take away his identity and take away his ability to be a Jew. I don't always consider myself the most religious person, but I feel like in his honor, I wanted to be able to my kids to know what it means to be a Jew, who they are, and where they come from. He was, tough mentally and physically. As I said, he was a funny guy to know as a little kid, but I always noticed wherever we went, the toughest guys in the room, the biggest rabbis, the most important person, always showed him respect because he earned it just by, being who he was, and he didn't have to make a fuss about who he was. He was always kind to others. He was always grateful. He always did the right thing. He was never about himself. He connected me to a world that was lost. But he, I feel like he also wanted us to keep going, and he wanted us to restore what we could and make sure that the Jewish people lived on. And he was a hero, but yeah, he was my grandfather, and he was so sweet. He was tough as nails, but he was so gentle. And I think, there's nobody really that taught me more about being a mensch and how to live and how to carry yourself and just doing the right thing. I'll miss him so much. I know everybody in this room will, and so many others.
It's going to be very hard for me to get through this, so just bear with me. First of all, I also want to thank you all for coming, and Juliet and Mercy. Juliet, who you call Julia every day. But from, I think, the second day he met you, oh my God, he never took to people like that, but he loved you. And we are so blessed to have you in our lives, both of you. The nights that you were up with him, like a baby in the middle of the night. And with the gentleness that he would have given, that he did give all of us. And I can never repay you for that. And I thank you both so much. So, when I was younger, I remember hearing the expression, "You had me at hello." And I know it's sort of a romantic expression, but when I went off to college, and I got to live more independently for the first time, sometimes I would come home to visit, and I would run into people that my parents knew or friends of mine, and they would tell me, they would walk up to me and they would say, I met your grandfather, and he was the most amazing person. And, I mean, like everyone. And I would say, what did he say to you? Hi? He didn't say anything. I mean, he barely spoke. But, in yoga, right, we say, namaste, the light in me shines to the light in you. And Papa's neshama had such an amazing light that it radiated out from his heart. And everyone who knew him just felt it. And all he had to say was hello. It was just astounding. And I know he made mistakes too, but his love was so great that it was greater than any of us. I want to tell you a brief story that's not about Papa actually, but once when PJ and I lived in New York, when we moved from the Bronx to Westchester, we lived in a little apartment. It was beautiful. We were very happy there. And we had Soren there, and it was wonderful. And there was a train station, our train station in Hartsdale. And one day, I remember I got off the train. For some reason, I had gone to the city, and there was a bridge over the train station to walk back to our side when you were coming home. So I had to get over the bridge to go home over the train. So I walked up on the bridge, and the bridge had like a glass roof over the bridge and down some of the stairs. And there was a bird, just robin or something, regular bird, that got caught, and it got stuck, and it was flying around frantically trying to find its way out. And there was a man ahead of me, and he reached up with the most gentle but like firm, just firm so the bird wouldn't get scared and wouldn't try and, hurt itself or fly away. That it knew it was safe, but also just the most gentle, natural thing that anybody ever saw. He reached up and he grabbed the bird and he held it. And then he walked out, and as soon as he was in a place where he could release the bird that he knew it wouldn't fly back into the glass ceiling, he let it go. And he just kept on with his conversation with his friend like nothing had happened. And I remember thinking that's exactly what Papa would have done. Like it felt like this small miracle. What do you call that? Like a everyday miracle, And I thought that's exactly what my Papa would have done. Like just reach up, caught the bird, let it go. No big deal. But it was so beautiful. And I also want to say, Papa made me, just like Josh said, and still makes me every day want to be a better person in the world. Every day, not every day, he would tell me, when I didn't want to do something hard, he would say, Vivi, gotta do it. And whenever I don't want to do something, because there are a lot of things that I don't want to do that are hard, I just think, Vivi, gotta do it. Papa, you have to do it. That's what Papa taught you. And his voice just comes to me in my heart and in my head. His love is with me and will be with me every day. And I have such gratitude to Hashem for giving me the gift of being his granddaughter and to allow me to be able to call him my grandfather. He says one of my greatest blessings in life is my family and my Papa. I feel a joy in my heart, even though at the same time my heart feels so heavy and in some ways so very broken right now. I thought that this is the feeling of the last piece of marble. And I'll say this because Papa, I don't know, not people outside my family don't know this, but Papa was a sculptor, really. He sculpted a few stones that he had when he was living in the displaced persons camp in Cyprus. So I thought maybe this is the feeling of the last piece of marble that's been chipped away to reveal the sculpture. It's both a joy and a relief, but a sadness that creating this beautiful life is now over. And I think that somehow, out of this brokenness, there is something whole here for all of us. And I will always bring you with me. And I tell my children when I send them to school, we're beautiful children. I tell them, you're always with me, even when you're not with me. And that's when you go to school, and that's when I'm gone one day. And I'm always with you, even when I'm not with you. And Papa is the person who taught me that the most in life.
In lieu of the Kel Rachman prayer, which we do not say today because it is Isru Chag, I'd like to call PJ, who joined with Laser. We'll first sing it in Hebrew and then PJ will read it in English. And with that, we'll conclude our program in memory of Kama ben Yaakov, Zecher Tzadik Livracha.
Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo Benois tashayar bitzeni, Amei menuchois yinahaleni. Nafshi yishoivei, Yavan chayni, V'maglei tzedek, V'maglei tzedek, Leman shimoy, Gam ki elei, Migei tzalmoves, Lo yirara, Ki ato imadi, Taroich lefonai shulchan, Taroich lefonai shulchan, Taroich lefonai shulchan, Neged tzayedirai, Dishantov Hashem en roishi, Dishantov Hashem en roishi, Dishantov Hashem en roishi, Ko isirivoya, Aftoi v'chesed, Yirtifuni, Kol yimei chayoi, V'shavti b'beis Adonai, Nadayadam, nadadadayadayadam, liyoyerachyamim.
Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. You have me lie down in green pastures and lead me beside the still waters. You restore my soul and guide me in straight paths for your name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies, and you anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. When I was looking for the translation of this lesson, I found a second psalm that I thought would be appropriate, and so I'm going to read it now. This is Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun shall not strike at you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm, and guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever.
With this, we conclude the service in the chapel. We will go into the gravesite. Shiva will be at the Buckman's home. The radio should be made with the Buckmans about visitation.
And we have the pallbearers, please. You can walk over. And I would ask that you rise once more, please. Please be seated. I would ask that you kindly remain seated. This way, please.